So let us begin our morning Bible study, and today we will be in Isaiah 65, the text that we will read during worship service for an Old Testament reading. Which one do you want? There is this one.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Isaiah 65. Okay.
Yeah, first, in our folders, there will be a first 9 verses, but we will go through the first 7. And the reason is, I will take a liberty to whine. Sometimes I do it, but I don't really like it to be whiny. You know, I've seen the great sticker on somebody's bumper, stop global whining.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. But seriously, whoever made the choice of this passage, they could do better. Sometimes they could do better. It should have stopped either at 7, because that's the end of the Lord's speech, or if you go into verse 8, it says, "Thus says the Lord." So the end of the next speech is in the verse 12. So they should include 4 more verses and we would be fine, okay? We would deal with 2 speeches of the Lord, okay? But to break it in the middle of the speech of the Lord, I think it's interruption. I don't think it's polite, so we'll just go deal with the first 7 verses, okay? So,
Isaiah
65. Sorry, my Hubo. Give me a second. So we are in second Sunday of Pentecost, and we are in Isaiah 65. We will be 1 through 7. Okay? And the first thing we will start is we'll go into small reminder that you all know, of course, by heart, of the historical context when Isaiah lived. Okay? So if we'll go to the very, very beginning of Isaiah, and it's great that you have Bibles, not only printed texts. If we go to the very, very beginning of Isaiah 1:1, it is very important to read 1:1. Growing up as a Soviet boy in Soviet Union, we were taught the respect for the book. We were told that Soviets are the most reading people in the world. Then we found out that that statistic was wrong, but that's a different story. But in my class, I had many literature teachers who really gave me the respect for the book, though I still put some notes on the margins, which is bad according to Soviet standards, but okay. So I started to read the books from the very beginning, from the preface, from introduction, and all of this kind of stuff. And that's why, especially in the biblical things, it is important to read everything, from the beginning to the very end. So in verse 1 of the first chapter, we see the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So it's 4 kings, okay? They are, if we'll outline them, it is always good to remember kinda the historical setting, okay? Relatively easy to remember, the guy named Hezekiah, okay? Isaiah will devote chapters 36 to 39. It's kind of like a compact 4 chapters inclusio into the book. In the center of the book, there is apart from many prophecies, and then many prophecies, in the middle of the book, we have a historical narrative. So that's a historical narrative. And when I say inclusive, it does not mean that somebody else included later. That's just how Isaiah structured his book. Okay? And Hezekiah, it is easy to remember, he ruled, basically the middle of his rule is the same date with the fall of Samaria. It's 722, and we are in BC. Okay? This is BC. Okay? Something like that. And when I say fall of Samaria, it's because you remember that there was a great king, first king of Israel. What was the name of first king of Israel? Who remembers?
Saul.
Good. Yes. I knew somebody will say it. Then there was another great king of Israel, and actually Saul is great king. How do we know that Saul is a great king? We know it because more than 1,000 years later, after him, boys were still named Saul. We have a very important character in the New Testament whose name is Saul. We know him as Paul. Okay?
Oh.
His first given name is actually Saul. So if the king would be bad, like they would not name boys after him like that. Okay? Nobody in today's Germany names anybody Adolf. Just don't. Okay? They just don't. For some reason. We don't really know why. Okay? We are not going to go into those details, but they don't. So about more than 1,000 years, people were still naming their boys Saul. Okay? That's important. Then there was another great king in Israel. His name is David. And then there was another great king in Israel. His name is Solomon. For whatever reason, after Solomon, King Israel split it in two kingdoms. Okay? South and the north. Okay? You still have a capital in Jerusalem on the south, and you have a capital with 10 tribes on the north in Samaria. So Assyrians came in 722 after Jonah visited them. He kind of helped them to build up the moral in their empire. So they came and conquered the northern part. Okay, the south waited for about 150 years. That's a nice marker. In 586, this is Samaria. And this is Jerusalem. So this is conquered by Assyria. And this Jerusalem is conquered by Babylon. Okay? So we are roughly here in Isaiah. Okay? For about 40 years. I know it's not really scale dimensions, but that's what it is. So then, but the things what he talks about, let's go to, let's say, chapter 45. Verse 1. So in chapter 45, verse 1, we have very interesting thing. Okay? Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped to subdue nations before him, and to loose the belts of kings, to open the doors before him that gates might not be closed. I will go before you and level the exalted places, and I will break in pieces the doors of bronze and cut through the bars of iron. I will give you the treasures of darkness and the hoards in secret places, that you may know that it is I, the Lord, God of Israel, who called you by your name. For the sake of my servant Jacob and Israel, my chosen, I will call you by your name. I name you, and though you do not know me, I am the Lord, and there is no other, and so on and so forth. So that the people may know from the rising of the sun to the west that there is none beside me, and I am the Lord. Okay? So on and so forth. So, who is this guy? Cyrus is the guy, okay? 586 minus 70. Who in 516 released Jews from Babylonian captivity. Okay? That's the guy. So we need to know that this verse was not written in 516. This is a prophetic vision. He knows about that. He names the guy roughly here, so about 200 years prior to the guy's existence. He knows him by name. Why? Because it's not Isaiah's thing. It is Lord's thing. He knows what he is doing, what will happen. Okay? But that prophecy is about this time, and that's your home task, not right now. You might want to go to Ezra 1, 2. Okay, so chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. And that's where Cyrus gives a decree. So you guys, if you want to build up your house of your God, Lord, in Jerusalem, go. You're free, no problem. They even had some budget from the government to do this kind of project. Seriously. So, that's the context of Isaiah. So when we end up in the second part of Isaiah, like in 61 and 62 and 63 and in 65 and in 66, excuse me, we are in visions concerning what will happen after, during and after Babylonian captivity. Okay? So, just for you to figure out, because it's not just a random set of sayings, there is important sequence. Before we'll go into the text itself, let me give you one more clue. Let's go into chapter 64. There is an important contextual setting for the words that we will talk about today. One of them, if we would go into 65, it was a passage for Resurrection Sunday. Okay? And this year, 65 verses from 17 and so on and so forth, where God says, I'm creating new heavens and new earth and this new creation theme and so on and so forth. But to create something new, you need to do what? Those who are involved into construction or reconstruction business, they know. To create something new, you have to what? You have to tear it down. You have to, I would come to my office and my boss would say, first we demo the unit, then we'll put the new one. You cannot put the new one in the place of the old one if you didn't demo the first one. Okay? You cannot put it on top. Two furnaces don't work on top of each other. It's like, okay, maybe some people do, but I've never seen this kind of stuff. So, the problem that we will face right now is there is a serious discord, discontent. So there is dissatisfaction into relationship between God and the people. Okay, on one side, 64. That's where I dragged you to. Start with verse 8. But now, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are our potter. And those themes, they are just, it's picking up the same themes that we started with. And we'll talk about that. We are all work of your hand. Be not so terribly angry, O Lord, and remember not iniquities forever. Behold, please look, we are your people, and your holy cities have become a wilderness. Zion has become a wilderness. Jerusalem is desolation. Our holy and beautiful house, means temple, where our fathers praised you, have been burned by fire. Okay? Again, one more time. This is written about 150 years prior to the date when it really happened. Okay? When Isaiah writes it, even though it's in the past tense, it didn't happen yet. It's a prophecy. Okay? Regardless of some commentaries with people who have PhDs and DLids, doctorate in literature, if you have those kind of commentaries, and they tell you that there was a second Isaiah or a third Isaiah who wrote it later on, so even if they have delete, you can delete them from your shelf and don't even worry about that. Okay? So that's the thing. He talks about how relationship will build up. On the one hand, verse 12. restrain yourself at these things, O Lord? Will you keep silent and afflict us so terribly? That's where our passage begins, after this question. The thing is, when the second, I believe that's what it is, that's the words of second person of the Trinity, because usually he interacts with human beings. And 65:1. What he says: I was ready to be sought, but there was nobody who would ask for me. I was ready to be found, but nobody did seek for me. Okay? So 61:1. So there is something wrong on, I don't want to say on both parts, but they cannot communicate. On one hand, people say, please, don't be angry with us. We are asking for pardon. Our system has collapsed, so we need to find the ways. And on the other hand, God says, guys, I was near to you all the time. And what you did is anything but looking for me. Okay? And then he will explain. Because I was there and I said, and this is very famous in Isaiah, 2-word repetition. Here I am, here I am. Okay? Second part of verse 1. One of the most probably famous, if we'll jump for 1 second into Isaiah 40, there is one of the most famous phrase, 40 verse 1. Comfort, oh comfort my people. Yeah, exactly. We know it by heart. I mean, and this is just few important examples, but it's very often when he repeats the words, and we have some smart Alex who say, no, it's a mistake of scribe. He was falling asleep and he just repeated because he was not careful on rewriting the scrolls. It's like, I mean, if people who say that would at least use at least half of their brain, they would know it's not the way. Because people who would copy the scrolls were not an elementary school students. They were highly professional and trained. Yes, they could do mistakes. Not even a problem. I have no question about that. But to repeat important words, why would they repeat only those important words?
For emphasis.
No. But my point is, if scribes repeat those words because of mistake, why would they repeat this thing? It's one thing. Secondly, if you know anything about ancient cultures would build on one thing. The ritual is the thing that changes very, very slowly. If it changes last. So if you have a scroll, new scroll of Isaiah, with edited words, the fate of this scroll is very simple. It's just going to be burnt. I mean, that's it. They're not going to use it. So that's why I think it is for emphasis reason exactly, Isaiah makes some things stand out. Some things should catch our attention. Where did we hear it? Here I am, first time in Isaiah. Who says it? It is Isaiah himself in chapter 6, after he had great vision of the Lord on the throne, okay? And then he is like, oh, I'm in trouble. Why? Because I am a person with unclean lips. Remember our class on Genesis 11? Okay, on Babylonian Tower? If you have unclean lips, what's the problem? If you have unclean lips, you have a difficulty not to communicate, but to worship. Okay? I am a person with unclean lips, and I live among people who have unclean lips. Okay? So it's people who have difficulty to worship, and I saw the Lord. What am I going to tell him? Then the angel comes, he takes the coal of the altar, burns, therefore cleans. The very next phrase, when the Lord says, whom shall I send? What Isaiah says? Send me. Here I am. Okay, that's exactly Ynez in Hebrew. Okay, here I am. Yet here, Lord says, here I am. Here I am. I'm here for you. Okay? We might need to draw a parallel, excuse me, to many repetitions of the word amen in Jesus' speeches, especially in the Gospel of John. Amen, amen, I say to you. Or sometimes in different translations it says, truly, truly, I say to you. Okay? Or verily and verily. Whatever word is used. In Greek it's actually amen, which means truthfully. Okay? So whatever I say to you is truth. And the cool thing is, usually what do we end with amen? A prayer. The thing is, he starts with that. Okay? So instead of saying something and say, this is true. Okay? Almost like an catechism. This is most certainly true. Basically, Luther wants to say, okay, amen. And everybody say, amen. You know, like good South Baptist amen, you know, this kind of thing. Jesus starts with that. Amen, amen. So, like here I am, here I am. But he appealed to, end of verse 1. Let's go back to 65. To a nation that was not called by my name. Okay, this phrase can be interpreted, I don't know, probably 4 different ways. We are not going to go into the history of interpretation of this particular phrase. There are 2 main things. One of them, it's a nation far that still does not know him. Okay, let's say Babylonians or maybe Persians under Cyrus. And he is trying to stretch toward them, but they don't know him. And it's like, we don't really know him. We have our own deities and things like that. That's one way to interpret the text. There is another one, is the people who do not call by my name. Okay, so who do not call me by name. They reject me. Okay, so people who know me but do not want to do not want to have a close relationship. Okay? Who do you call by name? People who you know. Your friends. Okay? If you don't know somebody, say, I don't know, sir, mister, ma'am, you know, things like that. You don't talk like that to your friends. You don't say ma'am to your wife. You know, you're just sweetie, you know, whatever sweet names we have for them. Okay? Then let's go even further. Verse 2. I spread my hands all the day to a rebellious people. And that things makes it a little bit more clearer. Okay? Who is called in the Bible rebellious people, rebellious nation? Many times. Israelites. Okay? And this is not an anti-Semitic thing to say, because they are called rebellious people by God in their relationship to God. Okay? Now, these nations who walk in a way that is not good, following their own devices. Okay? And the people who provoke me to my face continually, sacrificing in the gardens. Okay? Yes, sir.
Could we also interpret this to meaning us? We are a rebellious people. We can say this of us, Americans, or even of just me.
Yes, but, okay? Yes, but. To do that, we need to build what is in scholarship known as hermeneutical bridge. So hermeneutics is a science of interpretation. Okay? What is very important is there and then. Okay? What you want to do is here and now. Okay? What Isaiah is talking is Israel of 8th century BC. Can we make this parallel? I think it's justified parallel to here and now. What I want to point out, though, is not necessarily with this particular text. It's a great question, John, actually. Really great, seriously. Because what people do have not a problem, what people make mistake very often is from the text itself, okay, they immediately somehow, no rules whatsoever, jump into here and now, okay? And sometimes it's not really right, okay? What I think it is important is to understand there and then, okay, yeah, looking around, do we have the same problems? Kind of do. We'll talk about that, and you will see it for yourself. Then, you can make a right application or right jump into here and now. Then you can properly apply the biblical text to our day-to-day. Okay? So, that's an important distinction. So, can we say it? Yes. Yet we have to be careful. Okay? So, first of all, he doesn't talk about America in 2019. He has no clue about America in 2019. He doesn't.
By the same token, he didn't have a clue about 150 years later either, except that God revealed it.
Yes, but God didn't reveal anything about America 2018, 19. So that's my point, okay? So he has some idea. He doesn't know the dates.
Right.
He has the name only because it is mentioned to him. So he doesn't know any other names in between, but some names are revealed, okay? So that's the only concern that I have, okay? So just be careful, especially with, with an older text, like Isaiah, Jeremiah. But even with Jesus' things and what apostles talk about. When people jump immediately, the letter to, let's say, there is a letter to Galatians. We will have a text today in Galatians where he says, there is no Jew, no Greek, nor free, nor slave, nor male, nor female. Therefore, there is no difference. Therefore, let us ordain women. Okay? From there and then, we jump into here now. Without any thinking what he's talking about. What he is talking about in Galatians, if we jump into that, is in relationship to the Lord, there is no difference. Unlike in other cultures. Because, as we know, the foundations of democracy are from Athens and Greeks. Aren't we know? Don't we know that? Yes, because in Athens, everybody were equal. The only problem is that everybody is adult, male, healthy, rich, and free. If one of these is not true, one, you are just a talking thing. You are not a human. That's it. So simple. So what Paul says in biblical paradigm of relationship with God, it doesn't really matter. Are you Jew or a Greek? Are you free or a slave? Or in our politically correct, what's that? What Joe used to love to say, People's Republic of California. Okay? Free or servant. Okay? In some sense, I am a servant. I don't work for myself. Okay? I have to work for somebody, therefore I'm not free. Okay? Nor male, nor female. Yes. Grace is given to everybody. Lord, as we have it in Isaiah 65, now jump here now, in the first century Israel, and then into our days, he stretches his hands and says, here I am to everybody. Yes. So that would be a great example of the wrong conclusions. From there and then, jump into here and now. It's like, but Paul says it. It's like, yeah, but he talks about different things. If this logic is true, the slave and free is a relationship of obedience. Why don't we ordain children? perfect hermeneutical outcome of that statement. Let's ordain little girls.
Yeah.
Because they are girls and they are little. They should be under submission. Let them run the church. Why nobody does it? Because it's not about, if it's not about that, then it's not about that. So just be fair. Okay? So let us go back. The thing is, in verse 2, we have very important paradigm that would be set for kind of like, or not set, I'm sorry, which repeats another important theme. We have three things. So look at this. I spread out my hands to air. Rebellious people, they have three characteristics. Who walk in the way which is not good, following their own devices. Okay? Rebellious people who walk in the way which are not good. And the idea why it's not good, because they are not looking for God's opinion. They come up with their own ideas. Okay? Where did we see this kind of thing? If we'll jump into Psalm 1:1, let's go there for a second. I love that. I know it's hard to pick the Psalms and hard to pick the favorite chapter in the Bible, but that's probably one of my most favorite ones, Psalm 1:1. I can go back and find something else. Okay, in Psalm 1:1, verse 1. Blessed is the man. We know it. Some of you know it probably by heart. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. Okay? There are three, it's kind of like 3 steps down. Because if you listen to the counsel of wicked, you will end up on the way of sinners, and as a result, you will end up sitting together on the seat with scoffers. Okay? Same thing, let's jump back. We have a same 3 thing. People, first of all, rebel. Where rebellion takes place? In the heart and in the mind. Not necessarily on the street. First, you need to make a decision that you are rebelling. You don't like this, and you are going to act accordingly. Therefore, second line, they walk in the ways which are not good. As a result, instead of listening to God, they come up with their own devices, their own ideas. Okay? So that's this 3 ways down. Okay? Deeper and deeper. Therefore, we have even bigger problem. Let's read verses 3 to 5. A people who provoke me to my face continually, sacrificing in gardens and making offerings on bricks, who sit in tombs and spend the night in secret places, who eat pig's flesh, and broth in tainted meat in their vessels, who say, keep to yourself, do not come near me, for I am too holy for you. These are the smoke in my nostrils and fire that burn all the day. Okay? So the thing is, there are 4 things here in these 3 verses. Let's erase this one. So, every good community life, or scratch it, every community life has 4 parts. Okay? Verse 3. Worship. People worship together. Okay? People, it says sit together, but it's kind of like dwell together, spend time together. Okay? They worship together. They dwell together. They do what together? They eat together. And what's the last one? And they say, okay? They speak together. These guys who are doing things which are mentioned here, they do it wrong. It doesn't mean that this set is wrong. The set is right. The thing is, they perverted every part in this thing. So instead of healthy community, they ended up with unhealthy community. But these are important rules that we need to follow. Let us go into Acts 2:42. And you will be surprised maybe to find that first Jerusalem congregation did after sermon of Peter in the day of Pentecost. And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship and breaking of bread and the prayers. Okay? So, teaching of apostles, fellowship, breaking bread, and prayers. Okay? All four parts are here. If you want to have community, people need to worship together, spend time together, eat together, and talk to each other. Okay? Right here.
Or speak to God. But it says prayer is the last one.
Yeah.
Which is speaking with.
Still together to God. Yes. So this is speaking together to God, but this is speaking to each other. They need to talk, communicate. Okay? If we'll have a bunch of people who just come here to worship and do not communicate with each other, I don't think we will have a healthy community. Okay, let's put it this way, because actually the language is the sign of relationship. I mean, as long as I will keep my mouth shut, people will think that I'm really local, because I'm kind of dressed like local, more or less. I mean, I'm kind of like relatively tall. I'm not like really not too tall, not too short. I'm not really different from how people look here. But as soon as I open my mouth, everybody knows. I'm kind of relatively king here. You know? So that's what speaking does. And unless people speak, we cannot help them. We can say things about them, but we do not know them. Okay? So we can, if people need help, they need to say, you know, I need help here, 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 and here. Or I can help with, I have these skills, you know, I know this. And so I just wanted to point out that sometimes what we find in the Bible is general things which can be applied properly or non-properly. In Isaiah, we have not proper application of the great paradigm. In Acts, we have the same paradigm, same four parts, but they applied properly. Therefore, community grew from 120 people into 3,000 people, and then into 5,000 people, and then across the Roman Empire. And they ended up here in America. Okay, that's because of them, because they, and if you follow basically how church develops, that's what it is. So, let us go back to Isaiah. We'll still have a few minutes before our worship service.
I said the Lutherans are way ahead because they eat together frequently.
Yeah, it is important. It is important to eat together. See, apart from that, while you open, if you are not in Isaiah 65 yet, but see, that's why you have laws of kashrut, of kosher food, you know, what should be eaten and what should not. There are few things why. One of them is that people would eat together and associate only together, not with neighboring countries, because they eat differently. Okay? Because if you start to eat together, then as soon as you start to eat together, you start to what? To drink together. And if I drink with you, I can think that my daughter would be a great fit for your son. Okay? And that's how people ended up intermarrying and therefore leaving their God and worship. Okay? If you stay together and eat together only with your people, you keep your community. It does not mean that people cannot be invited to you, but they need to come to you and eat what you prepared, not you go for them. Okay? So it's an interesting kind of like what a Schrader valve thing. You know, the air goes in and but doesn't go out. So yes.
Why is the pork picked out as unclean? I mean, I know it's been throughout the history of Jewishness, but why?
True answer is you will ask the Lord yourself, because I don't know why. Okay, there are few reasons, more symbolic, because one of the symbolic reasons is pork. If you look at pig, it looks like a clean animal because it has split hoofs. Okay, but when it opens its mouth, you understand it doesn't chew the thing. Okay, it swallows. Okay, unlike cows. So there are. Okay, so are we all on the same page? You know what we're talking. Okay, so actually, Leviticus 11. So that's another your home test. Leviticus 11. Two main rules for clean animal. So split hooves and chewing. So if you look at the pig, it looks like normal. I mean, not normal. Clean. Thank you. I just got blank. Yeah. So it looks like clean, but in reality it doesn't. So it reminds the people who pretend to be right, but in reality they are not. Okay. So they pretend to be good, and there are lots of midrashic stories. Okay, Jewish stories apart from the Bible, that they compare pigs with sons of Esau, who were kinda looking like that, like a good guy, but in reality he was not. Which is sometimes, I think it's too much a stretch, but that's a different story.
Obviously, that's not something that we're carrying over from, into modern living. For most of us, anyway.
Okay, let's put most of us. Yes, some of us do carry it over.
Right.
For healthy reason, for dietary reason, for godly reason, I think it's still applicable. And that's why we have third use of the law in the formula of concord. So the law was given for us to not to be justified, but to follow and try to see an application. So if you eat pork, fine. I guess. Good for you. Okay? But let's go back. So my main point, last phrase on this one, is if we think, and I think it's the right interpretation, that in verse 2, what he means is a people and nation is Israel, that they are secretly, or trying to secretly, disobey God. Okay? Because it was clear for them not to do that. Okay? So if we want to jump from there and then into here and now, I don't think pork would be a main application. But when people do what they are not supposed to do in the church and still present themselves as Christians, that's where it is. Okay? So there are other things we don't do. And yet people kind of like, yeah. The Sunday I'm doing this thing, but yet 6 days of the week I'm doing this way. So
isn't that one of the main accusations is hypocrisy?
Hypocrisy, yes. That's the main accusation actually in the times of Jesus. When he talks to Pharisees, he says, guys, what you teach is kind of cool, it's very interesting and theologically very, uplifting, but how you act, it's not the way you should do. So therefore, you're hypocrites. Mm-hmm.
Like whitewashed tombs. Outside you look great, but inside you're full of...
Yes. Which is unclean, again. The tomb is unclean. But you look white, it's kind of like nice white wall, but inside there is uncleanness. Okay? So let us finish with that. Verse 6 and 7. Very important. Behold, okay, so he responds to that. Behold, it is written before me, I will not keep silent, but I will repay. I will indeed repay for their lapse. For both their iniquities, their fathers, and because they made offerings on the mountains and insulted me on the hills, I will measure into their lap payment for their former deeds. Okay, two important things. We're not going to go into very details with this particular verse, but first, it is Lord who speaks, yet it is written before me, or like in front of me. I have a text in front of me. Unlike many other gods, ancient gods and deities, who do capricious acts whenever they want, whatever they want, our God, I know it might sound weird, but still, limited himself to a written text. Okay? He deals with us, or he deals with humans, according to his written will. If it is not here, we should not expect that he would act in some kind of weird way. Okay? Sometimes his actions are surprising, but most of the time, because it's like just far beyond. Okay? But it is here. And when time passes, we kind of start, maybe that's why it's happened. Okay? So looking back. So what my point is, even our God is a God of written code. Okay? It's a still living word that can be interpreted and developed, but it is not just out of the blue. I mean, seriously, if you read Homer, Iliad and Odysseus, it's a sad and hilarious story simultaneously, because it's sad for those people who are involved in this Trojan War, but it is hilarious to look back and see, this DUI guy, Zeus, sitting on the top of the mountain, and he's constantly DUI. All the time he's drunk. And he tries to play favors with his wife and with his daughter, who are fighting on different sides of the war. Okay? So he favors one, and then one army starts to win, then he favors the daughter, and then the others. It's like, you don't know how to worship this guy. That's why they had to come up with crazy things, what kind of sacrifices to do, to kind of try to find out what he wants. Okay? Unlike that, we know what he wants. It is written. And it is a limit even to him. And he willingly limited himself for us. Yet, another second point in those two verses. As I said, we have four things. People do not worship right, people dwell in wrong places, they eat wrong stuff, they say wrong things. What is the main accusation against these people? Is worship. Because, why? I will repay them because they made offerings on the mountains and insulted me on the hills. That's the main thing. The only thing I want you to carry out of this lesson, if you will remember at least this, that would be great, is cult creates culture. Okay? These two words are very related. So however and whoever we worship, it will create a culture around us in a particular way. Okay? If people believe Lenin lived, Lenin lives, Lenin will live, therefore he's the idiot. Okay? But he's a dead body in the tomb in the middle of the red square, you create the cult of death. Therefore, no wonder you create the culture of death with so many people died in Gulag. Okay? It's very plain. It's right there through the history. Unlike that, because our risen Lord overcame death, I know that the modern historians will argue with me, okay, it's their right to be wrong, but if you really carefully trace what happened with societies where church start to have their influence, pro-life, no abortions, no drug abuse, and so on and so forth. Then church got corrupt and, it slowly get downhill. That's a different story. But in reality, our call of the guy who, of the God who lives, brings life into society. Okay? That's important. Questions or comments?